Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavala Girivaraja. Jaya Gopi Janavala Girivaraja. Yashodanandana Bhaja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Bihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 4, entitled The Atrocities of King Kamsa, Text 36. Kim Chema Sura Vibhudair Asam Yuga Vikatanai Raho Jusa Kim Harina Shambhuna Vavana Kasa Kim Edrenalpa Viryena Brahmana Vatapasyata. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The demigods boast uselessly while away from the battlefield. Only where there is no fighting can they show their prowess. Therefore, from such demigods we have nothing to fear. As for Lord Vishnu, he is in seclusion in the core of the hearts of the yogis. As for Lord Shiva, he has gone to the forest. And as for Lord Brahma, he is always engaged in austerities and meditation. The other demigods headed by Indra are devoid of prowess. Therefore, you have nothing to fear. Reports. Kamsa's ministers told Kamsa that all the exalted demigods had fled in fear of him. One had gone to the forest, one to the core of the heart, and one to engage in tapasya. Thus you can be free from all fear of the demigods, they said. just prepared to fight. Omagyantimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dinobandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasade Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So beg for the blessings of the assembled devotees. Adi Purush Prabhu asks for your blessings. May our words be aligned with Guru Parampara. May sharing Bhagavatam together bring pleasure to Shri Radha Mudar, Shri Gaurachandra. May all the devotees be benefited. Hare Krishna. So again, this is Canto 10, Chapter 4, Text 36. So these are Kamsa's ministers speaking to Kamsa. They're encouraging him to perform these atrocities of killing all the children that were born within the last 10 days. So they're encouraging him to fight. So here are their words again, text 36. The demigods boast uselessly while away from the battlefield. Only where there is no fighting can they show their prowess. Therefore, from such demigods, we have nothing to fear. As for Lord Vishnu, he is in seclusion in the core of the hearts of the yogis. As for Lord Shiva, he has gone to the forest. And as for Lord Brahma, he is always engaged in austerities and meditation. The other demigods, headed by Indra, are devoid of prowess. Therefore, you have nothing to fear. So last chapter was called The Birth of Lord Krishna. And this chapter is called The Atrocities of King Kamsa. So one follows the other, because whenever pure goodness appears in this world, then evil or darkness is threatened and always comes to attack. There's always some reaction, some attack that comes. We see when a pure devotee comes in this world, that also happens. They represent pure goodness, pure truth. So that's a threat to those who aren't living in that same way. So in a sense, when you see a pure devotee, when Krishna comes, when his devotee comes, why does it provoke a reaction, sometimes a heavy reaction? Because they represent the true standard of what it means to be a human being, the true potential that we could and should be striving for and living from. So therefore, it's sometimes disturbing to see that example. So when, we see Krishna appears and he brings so much pleasure to the devotees, but then the demons, they rise up to now, we're hearing the scheme here by the demons in Kamsa. how to somehow kill Krishna. Also, it's said before Jesus came, an angel also announced that this personality who's coming now, he will cause the rise or the fall of so many other persons. Because that person, you can either, if you're in harmony with that goodness and that truth, you'll rise up, you'll be elevated. But if you're not in harmony, it's a fall. You get worse. It brings out the worst because the person is representing goodness, and I'm turning away from that. Right? So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also, such a pure soul, nothing but pure intentions, but his life was threatened at times. There are people who wanted to kill him. When Prabhupada came to America, he looked very harmless, Prabhupada. You know, he was just a sweet, elderly Indian man, kind of small, gentle. But Prabhupada said when he came that if they knew why I had come, they would have killed me. They allowed me entrance. They allowed me to come in. But if they knew actually my intention, no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, if it was understood what I was bringing and what my intentions were, they would have killed me. So Krishna also, last chapter, he's born. The devotees are so pleased, they're so glad. But here in this chapter, now we see the opposite reaction from those who have this tendency, the demoniac tendency. So in these verses, we're seeing the fear of Kamsa. He's so afraid, and his ministers now are scheming. And they're giving him this false confidence. Oh, Kamsa, you are so powerful. You are so great. You can do this. You can fight the demigods. Well, let's start a fight. Let's do what's necessary. You have the power to defeat. And as for the demigods and Vishnu, they're all talk. That's what he's saying in this verse. They'll talk that they have power, but when it's time to fight, they don't show up. Vishnu's in the heart of the living being. Shiva is off to the forest. Brahma is just absorbed in his own austerities. Indra has lost his power. So don't be afraid. We can do this. We can take them on now and win, become victorious. So everything they're saying, these ministers, is contentious. Everything they're saying is doubtful and strange because they're surcharged with the motive, passion, and ignorance. It's described in the 9th chapter of the Gita, the mentality of the demon. Moga ashaha, moga jnana, moga karmana. This word moga, Prabhupada translated as baffled. Their activities are baffled. The knowledge is baffled. Their hopes are baffled because of the mentality that they have. So these verses may seem a little strange. The ministers are talking in this way. It seems a little untrue. Their minds are bewildered. This is what happens when one has this attitude, this consciousness that's against what is true, what is good, what is pure. Moga asha. The mind becomes polluted, the intelligence becomes polluted. So Kamsa is showing that as well, right? He's very indecisive. He's unreliable. A few verses earlier, he's telling, he's asking Devaki and Vasudev, please forgive me for what I've done. I realize now it was wrong. And then it just takes a few words from his ministers. And again, his ministers provoke his weaknesses. His ministers provoke his fear, his anger, his pride. You're a great fighter, you're powerful, we can kill the demigods. But we should know that it's not that Kamsa is just unlucky to have ministers like this. Kamsa was doing fine, he gave forgiveness, but now because of his ministers, he's getting changed again. We should know that we can only be influenced by people if something in us is resonating with what they're offering. Something in the heart So Kamsa has pride, he has anger, he has fear. It was covered for just a few moments, but now the ministers are, again, evoking it, bringing it out, provoking it. But it's in there. So you can never blame anybody. That's what it means, to really live that philosophy. To live our philosophy is very different than just speaking about it. To really live our philosophy means that when someone is causing me to do something or say something, that I see that actually this doesn't have to influence me, but there's something in me that also agrees with it. You know, someone comes up to you and just gets angry. And then from our own heart, anger comes out as a reaction. And we think this person has caused me to become angry. But no, anger is sitting in there. It's sitting in the heart. Sometimes it's pacified, but it's there. And it's provoked by a person, but it's coming out of me. We take responsibility. We take that responsibility. And we don't send the blame outward. But we see the true nature of my consciousness, the true present state of consciousness that I'm in, which has envy, which has fear, which has pride. We see it all. And different things in life provoke it, but those things are not the cause. The cause is within me. That's the point. The cause is within me. Earlier in the Bhagavatam, there's a description of the personality of Kali. You know, this is called the Yuga Purusha, the personality of the age. So this is Kali Yuga, and there's also a personified form. The Yuga Purusha, the person of this particular Yuga, is Kali. And when he first came, he couldn't rule. Why? Because King Parikshit was ruling still. So he had no power over King Parikshit. But Prabhupada explains in one purport. But he saw Kali had to somehow, it was inevitable that it was his time to rule. His age has now begun. But there's one problem, he can't do it. King Parikshit is there. So Kali saw an opportunity. Prabhupada explains this in a purport. He saw an opportunity within the heart of a young Brahmana boy. He saw a weakness, Shringi. He saw pride, the pride of a Brahmana. He saw anger. And Kali influenced Shringi. He brought out the anger and the pride that was in his heart. And so Kali utilized this one young boy. And that boy, when his father was insulted, he felt insulted at Parikshit, and he cursed Parikshit to die in 7 days. And that was the downfall. This is what removes Parikshit from the throne. And now Kali comes onto the throne as the king of this age that we're in. And he's ruling now. But he had an opportunity because of noticing there's this Brahmana boy. Brahmanas are supposed to be very pure, very simple teachers, right? But he saw this one young Brahmana boy. He had a pride of being a Brahmana. He had anger in his heart. And therefore Kali was able to influence this boy to curse Parikshit. This is how Kali acts through others. But there has to be something in our heart that allows for it. And then Kali can influence you. And other people can influence you. We want to be influenced by the devotee. We also have something, as devotees, we have something good in our heart that's awakening. And we also want that to be provoked. We want that to come out. So we associate with the devotees, and that also starts to rise up and come out. So that's the only way to get out of the entanglement. You know, we have this consciousness, the chitta. And the chitta, the consciousness, is full of samskars, impressions, past impressions. And those samskars, they rise up into our consciousness and take the form of desires. And then we act on those desires, and that causes a reaction, which causes a new samskar that enters back into me. So it's coming out of me, and I react. And it comes back in. New samskars come back in, and we're caught in a loop. Every living being in this material world is caught in an internal loop of past impressions come up to the surface. They become desires. I try to fulfill those desires. There's a reaction in the world that comes back into me as a new samskar. And we go around and around in this way. Until, what's our only hope? There's also something called Vishesh samskar. There's a special samskar that is not from an ordinary person of this world, but it's from a devotee. They also give impressions that get inside of us. And that changes everything. That's what breaks one from the cycle. So, this samskar that comes from a devotee is nirguna. It is not one of the samskars of the modes of nature. It is outside of the modes of nature, nirguna. We see a devotee, a pure devotee, just the look, just a few words, just something we see or we experience, just something we hear, and something new gets inside of us. And that breaks the cycle of all the other samskars that are just simply keeping us entangled. That's our only hope. So we want more and more of those samskars, more and more of those impressions from the devotees. And we can help this process along. We can only advance by the mercy of devotees, but there are things we need to do that help this process along. What is that? What can we actually do? We can't, just perform pure devotion. We can't just suddenly have pure minds. That is an energy of the Lord that comes into us. But there are certain things we can do to prepare ourselves to receive that mercy and that energy. That's all. You can't do it. You can't perform bhakti. You can't chant the pure name. But there are things that we have to do so that the pure name appears while we're chanting. Krishna appears while we chant. That pure devotion, the energy of pure devotion enters us when I'm performing service. I can't just decide to do it. But I can sincerely try and be receptive, and then Krishna's energy can work through us. So what can I do then? Well, what we have to do is at least we have to spy on ourselves, what's happening in our minds and our consciousness, and see to what extent we're entrapped in Maya. We have to see to what extent we are actually entrapped. That's what we can do. You spy on yourself. You're spying on somebody, you're looking at them very carefully. You're watching everything. We have to spy on ourselves. What's happening internally. Notice when I react with pride or envy or false ego. We just notice that. And the more we start to notice it, the more we'll realize it's a programming. It's not really me. That's the amazing realization. It's not really me. It's actually something that's gotten inside of me that's kind of taken control. We're devotees at their deepest core. We have love for Krishna at our deepest core, but there's these other things that have attached themselves to me. So we have to look inside of ourselves and see to what extent that I'm controlled by the modes of nature. And then what does that cause? It causes a longing in the heart to get out for Krishna. It causes a longing for Krishna's mercy to enter in. Because we can't bring it ourselves. We can't bring the mercy of the Lord. We can't do anything. We can't do anything. We can't do anything. But we still have to try to do something. So what is that? We just have to see to what extent we are controlled by Maya. That's all we can do. Just see to what extent I'm actually being controlled by Maya. And then what happens when you see that? You'll start to get certain realizations that, wow, I want to get free from this, but I can't do anything. So what do? I take shelter of the Lord. I just take shelter. And I beg for that mercy to come. So this section is nice because we're seeing the contrast between Vasudeva and Kamsa. Vasudeva and Devaki, you see their behavior in the previous verses. Very forgiving, Very intelligent also. Vasudeva is very intelligent. Like we were talking about Kamsa, Moga. Moga is that he has this impure, Mogadrik means like an impure vision. Everything is very confused and hazy. Vasudeva is the opposite, Amogadrik. He's described that way. He has very clear perception. And if we see the difference between them, Kamsa is very reactive, right? He keeps changing. He's unreliable. We don't know. He's forgiving in one verse, and the next verse he just gets influenced by his ministers and he's ready to kill. But Vasudeva is looking very carefully at what's happening. And he's also very intelligent. He doesn't have that anger. He doesn't have that rage. He doesn't have that hatred. He doesn't have that fear that Kamsa has. So when we hear the difference, Vasudeva, Kamsa, and then we take it inside of ourselves and realize this is what's going on. There is a part of me that can be like Vasudeva, and there's a part of me that's like Kamsa, you know? So there's a struggle inside of us. There's a struggle that's there. We have to make sure we're not struggling by the methods of Kamsa. The methods have to be, the struggle has to be the right kind of struggle. All devotees are struggling, but there are two kinds of ways of struggling. You know, there's a struggling of the false ego where you just feel it when it's the wrong kind of struggle, because you're angry at yourself. You're just resenting yourself for being like this. You're frustrated and just having a real hard time. But there's another kind of struggle where we just see what's happening inside of us. Wow, I'm very fallen. Just look to what extent I'm covered. And then we keep ourselves in the light of Krishna consciousness. Now I need to be in the light of Krishna consciousness more. That's all. It doesn't have to be a whole drama. The drama means it's the false ego fighting. And it's the false ego trying to overcome the false ego, which is impossible and ridiculous. It's like you're standing in the water and you try to pull yourself out by pulling at your own hair. Let me pull myself out of here. You can't remove the false ego from the level of the false ego, the platform of the false ego. But we can realize that we're totally under the power of the false ego, and then just have a prayer to the Lord. I need more light. I need more of the light of Krishna consciousness. And that longing starts to come, a desire. The first real desire comes. All of our desires in material consciousness are the modes of nature just passing through us, and we claim them as my desires. The modes of nature are influences passing through us, and we think, I want this in life. I want that. The soul doesn't want any of that. The soul just wants Krishna. But until we realize that I'm just totally under the control of the modes, and not just theoretically, but we see it. We have to look at ourselves and see that this is the condition we're in. And then just a little desire, the first real desire of the soul will finally awaken after who knows how many lives. It says, oh, I actually want something else. I want out of this cycle. I want truth. I want freedom. I want love. I want Krishna. And that's everything. That's the most sacred thing that we have. That just has to be cultivated more and more. That one thing, that thing that draws us all here, that thing that brings you, the thing that made you a devotee. Just recognize it's a very little spark of sincerity in the heart. But one day, if we keep feeding it and keep neglecting all the other desires and all the other inclinations, it's going to get stronger and stronger and overpower all of our other desires. That's how it works. With our willpower, we can't overcome our desires. We make an effort. We got to try something. We got to do something. Okay, just stop that. I'm attached to this. To try to get myself, or put myself in a different environment. But those things never really fully get rid of it. What gets rid of it is when that desire for Krishna becomes more powerful than the other desires. And we're only going to have that. We're only going to experience that desire for Krishna, which is in all of us. It's not like it doesn't have to come from the outside or implanted by. It's there. There's a desire. It's our desire for pleasure right now, but it's totally misunderstood and misdirected towards sense gratification. But that desire will get stronger and take over when we stop feeding the other desires. But if we keep feeding, it's like we keep giving ourselves just enough. As we were talking last time about this, that, it's like we have a lot of desires for sense gratification, and we keep feeding them just enough where the false self survives. We're feeding the wrong self, and it gives it a little strength, a little nourishment. Okay, now because we fear that I can't completely let it go. Then that's too much, But we should know, even if it's just like a little, those desires that want to be fulfilled. Okay, just give me just enough to get by. But that enough to get by keeps it alive, just like food keeps us alive, right? If you're starving for days, if you're starving for many, many days, and then a little water, a little food, okay, now you can live. A little more, now you can live. I'm starving again, take a little more, now I can live. Until we get the courage to just stop certain things and just come what may. I'm going to suffer maybe. Maybe I'm going to go through some suffering. I'm going to endure through it and trust in Krishna, but I actually can overcome it. How powerful is that when you actually do that? And Krishna starts to give a little mercy to give you the power to overcome. We don't believe that most of the time. We think I'm just going to die from not, satisfying myself in all the ways I'm used to doing. I'll just die. But there's a time when we'll struggle, and there'll be some pain, and there'll be some emptiness. But if we can hold on and keep taking shelter of Krishna, a little mercy, a little ability comes, and then it starts to fade. Our desires for sense gratification have to kind of gradually fade away. We have to lose the taste. But we have to make some effort to not keep taking it in. So it's another way of viewing this section. These are the pastimes of the Lord. Vasudeva, personality, Kamsa, personality, and we're seeing the differences between them. That's what's valuable about this section. But also to know that take this internal for a moment and seeing how there's a devotee within there somewhere, and there's also a demon in there. Many demons, many ministers. The ministers are also in there. Kamsa's ministers. They have many voices. Do this, do that. No, they're provoking Kamsa's pride. They're provoking Kamsa's fear. So there are voices within us that provoke the wrong self, that provoke the false self. But there's also one very quiet, soft voice that knows what's right, knows what's good, knows what we should be doing. And there just has to be a shift. Who do I identify with? That's the real question. That's the only question. Who do I identify? Which voice inside of me do I identify with? And people are living their whole lives identified with the wrong voice, the voice that they keep feeding and filling, that keeps them entrapped in the material world perpetually. But another voice has to arise. And of course, the spiritual master is speaking with that voice. So if we don't have it in touch with ourselves, then we at least have to hear from those who are in touch with that voice, the super soul speaking through a devotee. So we'll stop here and see if there are any thoughts, comments, questions. We have a few minutes.
One of the buzz terms since 2020 has been spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
I heard it first time in 2020, and I haven't stopped hearing it since.
Yeah.
And your message about understanding to the degree we're in Maya, and we cannot extricate ourselves from Maya without taking shelter of God.
Yeah.
And therefore we just take shelter of God, and that's like our honest solution.
Yeah.
Oftentimes observed from a third party, it appears to them to be like spiritual bypassing. Right. If you're not fighting with the false ego and coming up with all sort of practical solutions. Yeah. How do you answer this dilemma? Because it's come to me, this question. I was like a bulldog. But
the way I see it is that they have a point, and there has to be a struggle with the false ego, because we have to realize that I'm struggling with the false ego to defeat the false ego, and that's actually useless and fruitless. But we don't have the realization. So we do have to work on things, like work on things within ourselves and try to see things and struggle a little bit. But one day there's going to be a kind of insight that comes that none of that was going to do it. So you only have to do a certain amount until you get the realization. And that may be different for people. They think it's crazy that we're like, yeah, we're skipping over things, right? But somebody may have the realization that those things, I can't do it that way. And I know I'm in desperation. I just have to take shelter of the Lord. And that's everything to me. That becomes everything for a devotee. The mercy of the Lord becomes everything. But if we don't have faith in that, if we don't have that faith and yet we think, I'm going to do it. I got to work on so many things. I got so many problems. I got so many issues. But that's also a trick of Maya. And because if we get too entangled in that, we'll see it's going to be frustration. Again, like I was saying earlier, just like upset with myself and just like, oh my God, another fault. Yeah, they're unlimited. Just know they're unlimited. Another thing, I thought I've been working on this for years. Now it's come back again. It will come back because you can't remove it on your own. You can't remove it. You can cover it. You can suppress it. You can modify things a little bit, but you can't uproot it. And once that realization comes, then what becomes more important than anything else is hearing, chanting, serving the spiritual master, devotional service, the shelter of devotional service. That becomes everything. So I feel like there is something to be said about that point of view of bypassing, because if someone doesn't have the faith or the realization and they're just jumping into, they'll still get some purification from Krishna consciousness, no doubt, but there is a way that we have to like be where we're at and with our own level of understanding.
With that, I'm really enjoying your class.
Thank you.
You're really hitting it on nail. And in now a modern world, people now, everybody tries to rationalize. They'll never say they were, well, I was wrong, but this was because of this, because of my parents, because of
Right.
of this. No, you're responsible. And like you said, the only way is you take the responsibility and then seek out the Lord.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to find reasons and rationalization, and this one's at fault, this one tempted me. So just want to say that. I think you really hit on the nail, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that point. It's like this, to rationalize is like a mechanism that's automatically operating in us at all times. It's like, again, that's not us either. It's this mechanism that always wants to, what it's trying to do is keep the false ego alive. Again, it's trying to keep it strong. As soon as you rationalize, you're keeping the false self, again, alive and strong, because the blame's not on you, right? Someone else, hey, I'm not taking responsibility for this. So guess what? You will survive like that for a long time, but it's the wrong self that's surviving. But if you could say, you know what? Even these people have done this or said this, and maybe they're wrong in their own way, and that's coming to them, but I'm also, why was I affected by it? Why was I influenced by it? Why did I react with anger? Wow, that's inside of me. Krishna, please help me remove this. I don't know what to do. I know only by your grace is it possible. If we do that every time with every issue, then we'll get there. We'll get to the experiences that we're all longing for in Krishna consciousness. Thank you. Let's check time here. We have a few more minutes. Yes. We go.
You're saying that these things are within us, and then when we're in the association, they come out of us.
Mm.
And also that goes for the positive as well as the negative.
Yeah.
Like bhakti is in us, and we just need to we just need to get everything away that's not that. So do you say that the solution is to surround yourself with positive devotee association, and then those good qualities you will develop those good qualities by being in that positive association? And also in that positive association, you also see your stuff, that you have the support.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That same principle applies. Like, whoever we associate, we become like, and they provoke certain things within us. And there's a lot within us. There's this conditioned nature, there's anger, there's fear, there's lust, there's envy, but there's also other things. There are also some, in a very deep level, there are pure things that are also covered in there. And why are we attracted to a devotee? Why are we attracted to these things? Because it's starting to resonate. It's starting, we're starting to awaken that within ourselves by the mercy of that devotee. So the more we surround ourselves with the devotees and take in those impressions, the more we'll find ourselves gradually, those desires and inclinations will become more powerful than the other ones. And the other ones may still go on and be there, but then we're just losing our taste from it. It's just, we realize it's like, it's very degraded. We'll feel it that way. It's a symptom, is that you'll start to lose your taste. A symptom of the advancement is that we'll start to lose slowly, gradually. We may be still hanging on to a few of them, those attachments, a few things we're still on, but that's okay. It's going to be a process. You can't drop it all at once. It's not going to happen all at once. But know what you're doing to yourself. That's the key. You may have some attachments that still are keeping you kind of bound to the material energy, some struggles. That's okay, that's expected, but at least know what's happening. Don't shut your mind to what's happening. Don't think that this is fine, this is fine, this is good, but also know that, wow, I want to give that up too. I'm not quite ready, but I do want to give it up. Krishna, I see what I'm doing. And getting a little bit, I'm starting to let go. Help me a little bit more, let go. Okay, it's come back. All right, it's come back. The addiction has come back, whatever it is. Here I am again. Let me not get too upset about it. Let me just know what's happening. It will take some time. Let me continue on, get more of that taking shelter again. And then, oh, here it is, a struggle has come back. Okay, I know this is holding me back. Krishna, give me the strength to let go. That's all. Again and again and again and again and again, do that. Don't overreact either. Don't overreact. That is, again, the false ego. The overreaction is the false ego again, getting upset. Because when we're upset and we're angry and we're frustrated, it's just reinforcing the material consciousness. Those things aren't in the pure consciousness. Pure consciousness has a kind of, it sees the truth. It laments that it's separated from the truth, but it doesn't overreact with all the drama. It's a kind of soft lamentation that just wants to return to the Lord, wants to make a change, knows the fallen state, and just longs and seeks to return. I think we should stop here. So thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhagavatam ki, Hare Krishna.
Hey, Hare Krishna, everyone. I guess Ghanashyam Prabhu turned off this video, so we're all done for now. But we do have Ananda Bihari Prabhu giving us darshan of the deities at New Vrindavan. And I had hoped that he would start speaking, but he is not, so he probably left his phone on there. Gail Prabhu, I know that you had a question. I don't know if you wanted to put it out to whoever's still on the call. We do have some senior devotees on here. Maybe they would be able to answer.
Hare Krishna, I have a feeling that he probably did answer my question. I couldn't tell by some of the questions that were asked because I couldn't hear the questions, but judging by the answers to some of the questions, I think I might get the answer if I listen to the recording.
Okay.
But thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, and thank you everyone for joining us for another Srimad Bhagavatam class. Srimad Bhagavatam class Ki Jai. So we will see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Krishna willing. Okay, Haribo everyone.